Specimens from the Writings of Fuller by Charles Lamb. The writings of Fuller are usually designated by the title of quaint, and with sufficient reason, for such was his natural bias to conceits, that I doubt not upon most occasions it would have been going out of his way to have expressed himself out of them. But his wit is not always a lumen siccum, a dry faculty of surprising. On the contrary, his conceits are oftentimes deeply steeped in human feeling and passion. Above all, his way of telling a story, for its eager liveliness, and the perpetual running commentary of the narrator happily blended with the narration, is perhaps unequaled. As his works are now scarcely perused, but by antiquaries, I thought it might not be unacceptable to my readers to present them with some specimens of his manner, in single thoughts and phrases, and in some few passages of greater length, chiefly of a narrative description. I shall arrange them as I casually find them in my book of extracts, without being solicitous to specify the particular work from which they are taken. Pyramids. The pyramids themselves, doting with age, have forgotten the names of their founders. Virtue in a short person. His soul had but a short diocese to visit, and therefore might the better attend the effectual informing thereof. Intellect in a very tall one. Ofttimes such who are built 4 stories high are observed to have little in their cockloft. Naturals, their heads sometimes so little that there is no room for wit, sometimes so long that there is no wit for so much room. Negroes, the image of God cut in ebony. School divinity, at the first it will be as welcome to thee as a prison, and their very solutions will seem knots unto thee. Mr. Perkins the divine, he had a capacious head, with angles winding and roomy enough to lodge all controversial intricacies. The same, he would pronounce the word damn with such an emphasis as left a doleful echo in his auditors' ears a good while after. Judges in capital cases, oh, let him take heed how he strikes that hath a dead hand. Memory, philosophers place it in the rear of the head, and it seems the mine of memory lies there, because their men naturally dig for it, scratching it when they are at a loss. Fancy, it is the most boundless and restless faculty of the soul, for while the understanding and the will are kept, as it were, in libera custodia to their objects of verum et bonum, the fancy is free from all engagements. It digs without spade, sails without ship, flies without wings, builds without charges, fights without bloodshed, in a moment striding from the center to the circumference of the world, by a kind of omnipotency creating and annihilating things in an instant, and things divorced in nature are married in fancy as in a lawless place. Infants, some, admiring what motives to mirth infants meet with in their silent and solitary smiles, have resolved, how truly I know not, that then they converse with angels, as indeed such cannot among mortals find any fitter companions. Music, such is the sociableness of music, it conforms itself to all companies both in mirth and mourning, complying to improve that passion with which it finds the auditors most affected. In a word, it is an invention which might have beseemed a son of Seth to have been the father thereof, though better it was that Cain's great-grandchild should have the credit first to find it, than the world the unhappiness longer to have wanted it. St. Monica, drawing near her death, she sent most pious thoughts as harbingers to heaven, and her soul saw a glimpse of happiness through the chinks of her sickness-broken body. 1. The soul's dark cottage, battered and decayed, lets in new lights through chinks which time has made. Wallowed. Mortality, to smell to a turf of fresh earth is wholesome for the body, no less are thoughts of mortality cordial to the soul. Virgin, no lordling husband shall at the same time command her presence and distance, to be always near in constant attendance, and always to stand aloof in awful observance. Elder brother is one who made haste to come into the world to bring his parents the first news of male posterity, and is well rewarded for his tidings. Bishop Fletcher, his pride was rather on him than in him, as only gait and gesture deep, not sinking to his heart, though causelessly condemned for a proud man, as who was a good hypocrite, and far more humble than he appeared. Masters of colleges, a little allay of dullness in a master of a college makes him fitter to manage secular affairs. The good yeoman is a gentleman in ore, whom the next age may see refined. Good parent, for his love, therein like a well-drawn picture, he eyes all his children alike. Deformity in children. This partiality is tyranny, when parents despise those that are deformed, enough to break those whom God had bowed before. Good master, in correcting his servant, he becomes not a slave to his own passion, not cruelly making new indentures of the flesh of his apprentice. He is tender of his servant in sickness and age. If crippled in his service, his house is his hospital. Yet how many throw away those dry bones, out of the which themselves have sucked the marrow. Good widow, if she can speak but little good of him, her dead husband she speaks but little of him, so handsomely folding up her discourse, that his virtues are shown outwards, and his vices wrapped up in silence, as counting it barbarism to throw dirt on his memory, who hath mould cast on his body. Horses, these are men's wings, wherewith they make such speed. A generous creature a horse is, sensible in some sort of honor, and made most handsome by that which deforms men most pride. Martyrdom, heart of oak, hath sometimes warped a little in the scorching heat of persecution. Their want of true courage herein cannot be excused, yet many censure them for surrendering up their forts after a long siege, who would have yielded up their own at the first summons. Oh, there is more required to make one valiant than to call Cranmer or Jewel coward, as if the fire in Smithfield had been no hotter than what is painted in the Book of Martyrs. Text of St. Paul saith, "Let not the sun go down on your wrath, to carry news to the antipodes in another world of thy revengeful nature." Yet let us take the apostle's meaning rather than his words, with all possible speed to depose our passion, not understanding him so literally that we may take leave to be angry till sunset. Then might our wrath lengthen with the days, and men in Greenland, where the day lasts above a quarter of a year, have plentiful scope for revenge. 1. Bishop Brownrigg. He carried learning enough in numerato about him in his pockets for any discourse, and had much more at home in his chests for any serious dispute. Modest want. Those that with diligence fight against poverty, though neither conquer till death makes it a drawn battle, expect not but prevent their craving of thee. For God forbid the heavens should never rain, till the earth first opens her mouth, seeing some grounds will sooner burn than chap. Deathbed temptations. The devil is most busy on the last day of his term, and a tenant to be ousted cares not what mischief he doth. Conversation. Seeing we are civilized Englishmen, let us not be naked savages in our talk. Wounded soldier. Halting is the stateliest march of a soldier, and 'tis a brave sight to see the flesh of an ancient as torn as his colors. Wat Tyler, a misogrammatist, if a good Greek word may be given to so barbarous a rebel. Heralds new mold men's names, taking from them, adding to them, melting out all the liquid letters, torturing mutes to make them speak, and making vowels dumb, to bring it to a fallacious homonymy at the last, that their names may be the same with those noble houses they pretend to. Antiquarian diligence. It is most worthy observation, with what diligence he Camden inquired after ancient places, making hue and cry after many a city which was run away, and by certain marks and tokens pursuing to find it, as by the situation on the Roman highways, by just distance from other ancient cities, by some affinity of name, by tradition of the inhabitants, by Roman coins digged up, and by some appearance of ruins. A broken urn is a whole evidence, or an old gate still surviving, out of which the city is run out. Besides, commonly some new spruce town not far off is grown out of the ashes thereof, which yet hath so much natural affection as dutifully to own those reverend ruins for her mother. Henry de Essex. He is too well known in our English chronicles, being Baron of Raleigh in Essex and hereditary standard-bearer of England. It happened in the reign of this King Henry Roman II. There was a fierce battle fought in Flintshire at Coleshall between the English and Welsh, wherein this Henry de Essex animum et signum simul objessit, betwixt traitor and coward, cast away both his courage and banner together, occasioning a great overthrow of English. But he that had the baseness to do, had the boldness to deny the doing of so foul a fact, until he was challenged in combat by Robert de Montfort, a knight, eyewitness thereof, and by him overcome in a duel. Whereupon his large inheritance was confiscated to the king, and he himself, partly thrust, partly going into a convent, hid his head in a cowl, under which, betwixt shame and sanctity, he blushed out the remainder of his life. 1 Worthies, Article Bedfordshire. Sir Edward Harwood, KNT. I have read of a bird which hath a face like, and yet will prey upon, a man, who coming to the water to drink, and finding there by reflection that he had killed one like himself, pineth away by degrees, and never afterwards enjoyeth itself. One such is in some sort the condition of Sir Edward. This accident, that he had killed one in a private quarrel, put a period to his carnal mirth, and was a covering to his eyes all the days of his life. No possible provocations could afterwards tempt him to a duel, and no wonder that one's conscience loathed that whereof he had surfeited. He refused all challenges with more honor than others accepted them, it being well known that he would set his foot as far in the face of his enemy as any man alive. Worthies, Article Lincolnshire. Decayed gentry. It happened in the reign of King James, when Henry Earl of Huntingdon was lieutenant of Leicestershire, that a labourer's son in that country was pressed into the wars, as I take it, to go over with Count Mansfield. The old man at Leicester requested his son might be discharged, as being the only staff of his age, who by his industry maintained him and his mother. The Earl demanded his name, which the man for a long time was loath to tell, as suspecting it a fault for so poor a man to confess the truth. At last, he told his name was Hastings. "Cousin Hastings," said the Earl, "we cannot all be top branches of the tree, though we all spring from the same root. Your son, my kinsman, shall not be pressed." So good was the meeting of modesty in a poor, with courtesy in an honorable person, and gentry I believe in both. And I have reason to believe that some who justly own the surnames and blood of Bohuns, Mortimers, and Plantagenets, though ignorant of their own extractions, are hid in the heap of common people, where they find that under a thatched cottage, which some of their ancestors could not enjoy in a leaded castle, contentment with quiet and security. Worthies, Article of Shire Reeves or Sheriffs. Tenderness of conscience in a tradesman. Thomas Curson, born in Allhallows, Lombard Street, armourer, dwelt without Bishopsgate. It happened that a stage player borrowed a rusty musket, which had lain long ledger in his shop. Now, though his part were comical, he therewith acted an unexpected tragedy, killing one of the standers-by, the gun casually going off on the stage, which he suspected not to be charged. Oh, the difference of divers men in the tenderness of their consciences! Some are scarce touched with a wound, whilst others are wounded with a touch therein. This poor armourer was highly afflicted therewith, though done against his will, yea, without his knowledge, in his absence, by another, out of mere chance. Hereupon he resolved to give all his estate to pious uses. No sooner had he gotten a round sum, but presently he posted with it in his apron to the court of aldermen, and was in pain till by their direction he had settled it for the relief of poor in his own and other parishes, and disposed of some hundreds of pounds accordingly, as I am credibly informed by the then churchwardens of the said parish. Thus, as he conceived himself casually, though at a great distance, to have occasioned the death of one, he was the immediate and direct cause of giving a comfortable living to many. Burning of Wycliffe's body by order of the Council of Constance. Hitherto, AD 1428, the corpse of John Wycliffe had quietly slept in his grave about 41 years after his death, till his body was reduced to bones, and his bones almost to dust. For though the earth in the chancel of Lutterworth, in Leicestershire, where he was interred, hath not so quick a digestion with the earth of Asildama, to consume flesh in 24 hours, yet such the appetite thereof, and all other English graves, to leave small reversions of a body after so many years. But now such the spleen of the Council of Constance, as they not only cursed his memory as dying an obstinate heretic, but ordered that his bones, with this charitable caution, if it may be discerned from the bodies of other faithful people, be taken out of the ground, and thrown far off from any Christian burial. In obedience hereunto, Richard Fleming, Bishop of Lincoln, diocesan of Lutterworth, sent his officers, vultures with a quick sight, sent, at a dead carcass, to ungrave him. Accordingly to Lutterworth they come, Sumner, commissary, official, chancellor, proctors, doctors, and their servants, so that the remnant of the body would not hold out a bone amongst so many hands, take what was left out of the grave, and burnt them to ashes, and cast them into Swift, a neighbouring brook, running hard by. Thus this brook has conveyed his ashes into Avon, Avon into Severn, Severn into the narrow seas, they into the main ocean, and thus the ashes of Wycliffe are the emblem of his doctrine, which now is dispersed all the world over. 1. Church history. I have seen this passage smiled at and set down as a quaint conceit of old Fuller, but what is not a conceit to those who read it in a temper different from that in which the writer composed it? The most pathetic parts of poetry to cold tempers seem and are nonsense, as divinity was to the Greeks foolishness. When Richard Roman II, meditating on his own utter annihilation as to royalty, cries out, "Oh, that I were a mockery king of snow, to melt before the sun of Bolingbroke." If we had been going on pace for pace with the passion before, this sudden conversion of a strong-felt metaphor into something to be actually realized in nature, like that of Jeremiah, "Oh, that my head were waters, and mine eyes a fountain of tears," is strictly and strikingly natural, but come unprepared upon it, and it is a conceit, and so is a head turned into waters.